Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
So, this was our live last night, which was a real fun one. This map is very interesting. We also, by the way, did a remote viewing that was very, very interesting for the Patreons and the members. Something we're doing on a regular basis now. We have a lot of plans as we're building our homestead and attempting to build a homestead here and try to keep everything going as much as possible. But how about humanity? Look at this. What do you see here? Stop hiring humans? The era of AI employees is here. Stop hiring humans. Times Square bulletin. Wow, this is the era of the Borg. You know, it gets me thinking about just trends, economic trends, which we can tell have been very, very, on the whole, very negative in many ways. This is looking at where Americans moved last year. I think this is always very, very telling. What do you see? Well, I could see where people are moving out of. New York, 28 net. Their net gain or loss was a net loss, 28.2%. California, 25.1%. Wow. Kansas, 19.6% negative again. Alaska, I can understand that. The weather's really tough. It's very, very challenging. Where are people moving to? South Carolina has the fastest per capita growth in the entire country, and then Idaho, all the way on the opposite corner, 63.2% positive. So you could see people are moving in different directions. And basically, the largest red that I see is in places where maybe the economic situation is the most challenging. There are people moving into places where it's less expensive. Look at Arkansas, 33.3% positive net increase. Tennessee, 43.6%. North Carolina, 29.2%. Oklahoma, 26% increase. And even up in Wyoming, which has less people than any other state. Alaska does have less people per mile, but Wyoming has the least amount of people, and it still gained 26 points there. So we could tell the trends on where people are going, but the reality is most Americans cannot afford new homes. A new analysis from the National Association of Home Builders shows that 65%, two-thirds of U.S. households are priced out of newly built homes based on current prices and mortgage rates. In some parts of the country, the situation is even more extreme. More than 80% of households can't afford a new home, highlighting how widespread the affordability gap has become. Here is a map to show you the percentage of the population that is priced out of new homes. And coincidentally, where's number one? Well, it's Alaska, but also New York right there, Oregon right there, Washington State really high, Montana, and that Wyoming. So even though they had a net positive, most people can't afford to go there. Wisconsin, look at this, 77%, Ohio, and even South Carolina, which again is gaining in people. This is a sad situation overall. It really is a sad situation when the vast majority of people cannot afford an average home. And again, think about this. Median new homes cost $267,000 in Mississippi. Yet most households can't afford that. Now, $267,000 is a bargain in many places. How much does $267,000 get you in New York or California, or even Oregon or Washington? And yet in Mississippi, you still have 61% of the population that can't afford that. This is a horrible trend that keeps increasing, and yet they're not hiding the blatant corruption anymore. We know all these scams that have come out of many different states and many different congressional districts. The reality is, again, when you elect millionaires and billionaires, do you really expect them to look out for the average person? If you do, then something is not clicking. Americans are struggling to make ends meet, but it's not just us. It's people in the UK, it's Canada, it's Australia, it's New Zealand, it's all over the world. Anyone outside D.C. looking to run for president in 2028 should denounce congressional insider trading. Yeah, they've done some token work at putting some bills in to limit it, but the reality is, again, how does somebody go into their position with a net wealth of maybe $1 million or less, and then somehow turn it into 20, 30, 50 million, 100 million? How does that happen? Well, when you're in a position of influencing what laws get put into effect, you're in a place where you could definitely benefit. And this is really what we are seeing. And this is, Ron here trying to say, things are tough for Congress too.
Well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family.
Extreme sacrifice, again, we look at their net worth. The average net worth of U.S. senators and representatives varies significantly by state. National averages not directly provided in search results. However, California has the highest congressional average net worth at $18,402,000. $18 million, followed by Massachusetts at $31 million when weighted by delegation size. Florida ranks third with an average of 8,979,000. And then states like Alaska and North Dakota have averages below $1 million. Senate wealth tends to exceed House wealth in most states, well, because they're deeper entrenched again. Massachusetts senators reporting an average of $185,306,162, the highest of any state, driven largely by Senator Elizabeth Warren's financial disclosures. In contrast, House members in Montana have the highest average of $31,046,000, attributed to sole Representative Matt Rosendale. Overall, the median minimum net worth for members of Congress was $511,000, which is still so much more than the average person. And in fact, when we look at that, it's so far out of our scope of even thinking about. Again, it depends on where you put your focus. And when your intent is money, you got to realize that money has a tendency to corrupt, especially when it builds in excess like this. So how much are these people really in service to the people that are supposedly representing? I don't think very much. I think this is just what we've come to the pinnacle of corruption with. The spoiled prince of Kiev, Zelensky, has deceived and ruined his country with Western help. And again, he's an actor that's been put in this place. And actually, he is an actor. He literally played a role as the actor of Ukraine, believe it or not, and then they put him in there as the leader of Ukraine. Some say he's a billionaire. But when you ask... When you ask the AI, how much is he worth? Only 20 to 30 million. But, there are those that say, no, he's worth much more than that because, again, you could hide wealth in shell companies. You could hide wealth in corporations. This is what the elite do. They understand. To them, it's all just a game. Tax evasion is a game of the ultra-rich and wealthy. And they do it with figures that stagger the average person. And stuff we cannot even start to comprehend, really, most of us. He and his wife, Olena Zelenska, own a portfolio of properties in Kiev valued at about $4 million. So the presidential salary is nothing. It's laughable. But, the reality is, how much does he really own? Well, how much is really under his control? The reality is, when groups like the Illuminati come to knock, they just say you're never going to need anything, you're never going to want for anything. So they will fulfill all that as long as you're ready to do anything they say. And that's just basically the reality that's being exposed to the world. How about Klaus Schwab's chilling confession? Your privacy is dead. You'll learn to love it. Oh, yeah, if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid. Well, I mean, we've seen photos of Klaus dressed like Claudette, just to bring up some things, And again, these are the people that have things to hide. And they're so good at it. They spend so much of their time hiding everything, hiding their assets, hiding the things they choose to have for dinner when they're with their other buddies, if you know what I mean. Join the rebellion. Yes, we need to, because again, they're telling us you'll own nothing, but they're saying they'll own everything. And it's up to humans to recognize the con that has been in play. Ultimately, why are they afraid of population growth? Because they don't want it to get past the ability of themselves to continue to manage the civilization and everything we see. Why are ticks dropping out of the sky? Why are states, experiencing record numbers of ticks, record numbers of different diseases popping up left and right? Why do we even have such things as mosquito factories? Why do we have places like Plum Island? Why are they always looking for gain of function to make something more deadly? They're just simply looking to keep the system going. That's all. And as people wake up, if the people don't do anything about it, we're going to end up with a great reset, which they've told us is coming. They say that he has fallen, and yeah, we understand. Who's in charge now? Well, apparently, it's the same head as the head of BlackRock. These are all different tentacles of one octopus. And until we remove the plague upon the land, the real parasite, nobody's going to be able to breathe safely on this planet, because again, the air, the water, everything is being toxified, and it's affecting all of nature. Have you ever seen a seahorse? Well, now you have.
Beautiful.
They are beautiful. Nature's beautiful. And so we need to return to nature. We need to ground and root. We need to go to simpler ways in many cases, because again, they dazzle us with their technology. Look over here, look over there. Universal basic income is coming. They will pay you for the damage that's been done with certain choices that you might have made way back in 2020, 2021, 2022, you know what I mean? But ultimately, it's all about control. It's all about controlling humans and not allowing human expansion. But there's nothing they could do to really stop it. They could just try to pull as many in to their tangled web of deceit as possible. And unfortunately, there's still those that are totally sleepwalking zombies at the moment. But ultimately, the era of the AI takeover is what we're looking at. And it's even the fact that that AI has been in existence a very, very long time. They're trying to fool us by getting us to think that the AI is something that's brand new. No. Again, there have been reset after reset after reset after reset. The AI has been here the whole time. They're just basically now telling us what they're going to do ahead of time. So it's up to you to stop them. What are you going to do? Let's share your opinions and thoughts. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.